that were unexpected. Nick Caldwell's the current representative for that seat. We invited him. He was unable to attend due to travel. And Rick Tate is his challenger, who was planning on being here tonight. He has some campaign material there in the back. Unfortunately, he's sick and couldn't make it. So unfortunately, we were unable to bring anybody together for that race. But I encourage you to look up. I know Rick's on Facebook. I'm not sure about Nick. Pick up some campaign material and learn more about those individuals. But now we have the mayor's race. So for the mayor's race, we had another unexpected dropout. Miss Lisa Talbert had agreed to come, but dropped out last minute. Mayor Womack was unable to attend to travel, but Mr. David Cox has agreed to come, and he said he didn't care. He said, I'm going to come anyway. So Mr. Cox has graciously made himself available for this candidate forum. So same format as before. This time, responses won't be timed because we don't have anybody that needs equal time, so we only have one. So we'll get this started with Mr. Cox here. I'm going to let him open up with an opening statement, and then we'll get into questions.
Well, Clay, thank you and the Pickens County Republican Party for hosting this event. It's always a pleasure to be in the presence of great people who live in Pickens, who live in Easley, who are involved in their local government. Excuse me. My name again is David Cox, and I'm running for mayor here in the city of Easley. I have a passion to help people. My life has always been about helping people, underprivileged people, people who need help. And I love solving problems and taking big challenges. I'm a very visionary individual. I love taking on tasks that others say it can't be done, it's too difficult. I love thinking about how things can be, not as they are. I love working with people. One of my better qualities is I'm a team player. I don't have to fly solo on any issue. I've learned a long time ago it's very easy to make the mistake and think that you can lead by yourself, but that's never really good or smart because there are a lot of people like you that have great ideas. No one man has an answer for every issue and problem that's out there, so you glean a lot by listening to people, and I've learned by building great teams, you can accomplish a lot. I'm going to serve as mayor because I see the issues and problems that we're facing in our city. One of the strange things that's happened in the last few years is this phenomenon of all the people from the north moving to the south. It's been going on for some time because I remember several years ago in Greenville, you didn't see 10, 20 years ago what you see today. But now we've sort of become a bedroom community to that, where that spillover is highly affecting the lifestyles of every single person in this city and in this county. Now, I am a planning commissioner and have been one in Pickens County, not the city, but the county for 3 years. I am vice chair. Matter of fact, I was reelected as vice chair last night to serve another term. And I enjoyed that position because it lets me work with citizens. It's not always about a builder coming in and submitting a set of plans and saying, this is what we want to do, but it's also about listening to people. It's also about understanding their pain and the situations that they're facing. I, like you, when I moved to Easley, I enjoyed the country life. I love the Southern culture. I get a chance to travel around the world a good bit, but there's nothing like coming home and experiencing Southern culture. I can know it and feel it when I get off a plane or when I drive into South Carolina. I say, I'm home. I can just feel it. You can tell it when you meet Southerners that this is the greatest place on earth to live. And I think the problem is a lot of people around the country have figured that out. Maybe they've been watching Clemson and the SEC too much, and they thought, man, that looks pretty good. I think I'm going to try that place. And look what's happened. They're just coming in by the thousands. Someone told me in the city or in the county that when homes are sold, 10 homes that are sold, 8 are sold to people from the north. Now, we're not picking on anybody from the north. This is just strictly for information purposes. But that tells me something, that there are a lot of people coming to Easley and in Pickens County. Some studies have shown that there are 1.2 million people projected to move into the upstate over the next 10, 20 years. 15 probably is most likely when we'll reach those numbers where growth will be completely changing the lives of all of us, and our Southern heritage and culture will pretty much be gone. Now, you take those numbers and think if they were wrong and we just had half that number, just say 600,000 people were to move into the upstate, say over the next 15 years. You're talking about Spartanburg all the way down to Anderson. You're going to pick up Easley, some of Seneca, but a lot of Greenville as well. So just assume that 50,000 people move into this county or into this city. You're talking an estimated of over 200 subdivisions that would highly affect us over the next decade and a half. That is a tremendous amount of growth for people who are not used to that. I'll tell you a story very quickly. When I started on the Planning Commission, the other commissioner said, now, David, we used to do one subdivision a year, and we were so excited about it. Man, growth in Pickens County, one subdivision. So their standards were very low. How many know what the UDSO is? So most of us are very familiar here to understanding those are the standards in which a builder or a big tract home builder would use to decide if he wants to build into this county. Well, when you're doing one a year, you can be okay with a very, very weak UDSO. It's not really impacting all the people in your county that much. But it hasn't been touched in 25 years. And all of a sudden, 3 years ago, we started doing 2 to 3 subdivisions every single time we met. And we would be in these meetings, and you'd have 30, 40, sometimes 100 people show up in these meetings, shaking their fists, crying, screaming, and hollering, and begging for commissioners not to approve these projects. So first time around when it happened, I thought, wow, man, this is a problem in our county, and I wonder how well it's being addressed. So one subdivision that came to us, we turned it down. I led the charge on it. I talked to some of the folks, and I said, it's not right for us to ignore people who are hurting and feeling the pain of these subdivisions. Because what was happening is box builders would build 60, 70, 80 homes on a rural road. And these people that lived on that rural road have lived there, some of them for several generations. And they're saying, this is our Southern culture. And why are we allowing this to happen? And so I approached a lot of our leadership in the county, and I said, what is the purpose of this? And I honestly couldn't get very, very well detailed answers because I think a lot of them were sort of shocked by the growth that the county was having, and it really hadn't registered to the point of it being critical. And we were just saying, it'll be okay, maybe it'll stop at some point. But now we know it's not going to stop. It's going to continue. And so I approached a lot of the leadership, and I said, one of the things that I don't like about being a commissioner, you're asking us to approve subdivisions, and you got all these citizens out here being affected as if they have no voice in this, as if their opinion doesn't count, and that we just do it and it's okay. The subdivision that I turned down with the committee, I heard from leadership saying, oh, you're going to get us sued. That's not your role. You can't do this. And I said, well, why would we be put in a position time and time again, month after month, where we are confronted with the citizens of this county and we are asked to do something that we know they absolutely oppose? And so the real bottom line on this is a balance of what government wants to do versus what the rights of the citizens want. It's okay for you to say, I don't want a lot of growth. It's okay for you to say, I don't want something annexed in or approved. That's your right. That's your voice. And you can do that at the election. November the 7th, every time elections roll around, you need to express to your leaders how you feel about that, because that's your right. And I shared this with a lot of leadership, and over time we begin to realize something has to be done. So I sat down with a very smart person named Jessica, and we rewrote the UDSO for the county. And now what that means is we laid out a system of provisions that we felt we needed to present to the board and to the leaders of our county to say, this is what we need to do to update our UDSO. Now, it's not odd or wrong. It's not me being a control freak or trying to push my way over on people, because really all the counties in South Carolina and all the counties in the South have had to address this issue. We all feel the pain of overgrowth in our communities. And so starting in the UDSO, we realized there was a lot of work that had to be done because it really hadn't been touched in 25 years. And so once I began to work with the county, a lot of people said, David, we have a lot of issues in the city. And I've been living in the city for 6 years, and I began to see the problems and hearing all the situations that were occurring in the city right along with what was going on in the county. And I said, we have got to change this. The people of our community have a voice, and we need to listen to them. We need to pay attention to them, and we need to do what is right in the eyes of the people of our community. So thank you for giving me those open statements.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. So now it is question time. Somebody's got a question. I know it. All right. Well, I've got one. So this came up in the city council. It was a question raised then, and I think it's worth mentioning now as a former government change. Mr. Cox, do you have an opinion? Should the former government easily be changed? Is it working okay as it is? Is it more about the people involved? What's your take on that?
Well, I'm a little bit shocked when I see how the city council meetings are run. I think it's bad ops for the county and the people that live in our city to see the types of dissatisfaction that we have in these meetings. Obviously, your voice matters, and you should be heard on every level. I know on the Planning Commission, we make sure we listen to everybody, and you have that right just as they do. I think what's happening in our community is that you are right on a lot of these issues. And I think a lot of people in the government or in our city think they're right. And so you have this big void between what you want versus what they want. And you can't have that in government. We have to be able to reach across the aisle and fix these issues. Your voice counts. Your vote counts. And I think what happens here, by you expressing your opinion in an election, it puts people on notice to pay attention to what voters are saying. I hear a lot of people talk about the changing of the government. I'm 100% for that. I think a good leader can lead on both sides. You can lead with a strong council, and you can lead as a strong mayor. The issue is we need to put this before the people and let them decide what form of government they want. I will say this to you. I am a very good listener, and I understand when people come to meetings and they have issues and they have problems and they're wanting to be heard. Some of the things that I have seen, like on Highway 8, should have been addressed before we got to this point where people are so frustrated with the city management. We have to pay attention when we put these subdivisions in place, how it affects people who've got to pull on these roads day after day after day. Matter of fact, if it keeps on, I'm going to buy a car company that only turns right. I think that's going to be the next hit, because it doesn't do any good to buy a car that turns left if you live in Easley anymore, because you can't do it anymore. So a little humor there, but how many have noticed that? You can't take a left in Easley anymore. You got to take a right, and that shouldn't really happen. Now, I understand growth. For some reason, the South is an attraction for everybody in California and up north, and they're coming in here by the waves. Am I going to lose some Southern culture? I hate to say it, but I'm afraid I am. I don't know what to do about it except to say we need to raise our UDSO standards in the city. And if I'm mayor, what I would like to do is make sure that not only do we work with the county in what their approach to development would be, but I like to mirror some of that so we take on the same standards, so that if big box builders come in here, they're going to look at those standards and realize we, the people of Easley, are not going to be a pushover. We're not going to allow this to happen without there being some retribution for us. And I think we can stop a lot of it, and I think we can stop a lot of it. I think it takes good leadership. I think it takes people who have a very, very strong personality, who realize they're not going to be rolled over, but they're going to stand up and say, we have to listen to people. Now, I think what I'd like to see happen is, if I'm mayor, I'd like to have a 5, a 10, a 15, and a 20-year plan. I've already talked to some of the smartest people in South Carolina who live right here in Pickens County. And we have shared ideas on the same issue, that we need to come together with our leadership, with very, very smart business people, and say, if this has to come to our community, 50,000 people or whatever comes, We've got to be prepared for that. We just can't be reactive to situations. We can't wait till people are screaming or killed or can't get out of their driveways before we say, wow, there's a problem. Now, how many noticed a lot of even federal government operates that way? We wait till there's a complete disaster before we approach a problem. Well, you don't have to do that. We know this is coming, and we have leadership in this county alone that can take on opportunity to lay a program and a plan out that involves people like you to look at what we're doing, to decide if we're going to have to swallow this pill, what's it going to look like? What do you think about it? And how can we represent you in the fairest and best way that we possibly can? Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Time for a question from the crowd. I asked mine, and I can't vote.
It's the Unified Directive Standards and Ordinances. What it is a law that the county and the city and all municipals and government put in place, a standard that builders look at when they build a home. In other words, they pull this up online and it says you can have a slab home here, but you got to have a crawl space here. You can have the density of 4 homes on this acre, or there may be one that says 6. And it may say the offsets have to be 20 foot off the road. Or it may say that the green space is 20%. For example, as a planning commissioner, as we were doing the UDSO, we're at 20%, which means a developer can buy 100 acres, and he can develop 80 of those acres and only has to use 20% of that for green space. That means you're not putting anything on. It's just the trees that are there. It's undisturbed land. Well, in our UDSO development standards, we got to 30%. And in those board meetings, I said, now, wait a minute, folks. That is way below the state standard. I said, I think that we should pull it up to 50%. I said, that is a standard that a lot of people are using right now in South Carolina. And I said, if you go to 30, you're just bumping it up a little bit. It's not going to impact developers enough to say, I want to think about that. And so finally, we resolved to settle at 40, but they were going to go 30. We're at 20, and I pushed it to 40% because I think that we need to preserve our streams, we need to preserve our trees, our land, and we need to make our subdivisions, if we're going to have to swallow this pill, to be as beautiful and as healthy as possible. Thank you. Pardon?
Well, we got a question right here down front.
You segued perfectly into the question that I was going to bring up about the UDSO percentages. If we can get to that 40% level, how much of that green area includes the buffer, or is that strictly green area, not including the buffer around a development? Because developers are going to jump up and down on that and try and weasel their way through.
I will say this, that is a very technical question. I don't know that a lot of people would figure that out, but let me say this, the county has not resolved all of that yet. They are in session working on that. And my relationship with them is to make those standards as tight as possible, because if we're going to have to build a subdivision, those standards should match what Charleston's doing, Columbia's doing, what Charlotte's had to do, and other places. So we have to raise that standard up in Easley so that we get a better product, because what we don't want to happen is for big box builders to come in, buy this land up, build all these homes very fast, and then people who are out of town move into this product, and then for some reason 10, 15, 20 years down the road, all of a sudden the culture shifts. And now you got all these people moving back home. I talk to people from the north, and they say, I left my mom and my dad, my children, my son, my aunt, and my uncle. I've lived there for 2 generations, but I got out of there. Well, what if all of a sudden they want to take an attraction to go back to the north? What are we going to do with all these thousands of homes we have built around the upstate? I mean, you're talking about a tragedy and an absolute crash of the housing market in our community. And I'm not saying that's going to happen, but nobody thought this many people would move in overnight. How do you know that won't switch in 10, 20 years? And now they're moving out. And then you have a massive amount of empty homes, deflated real estate prices. Who's going to live in those homes? People that are around the country that are looking for something really cheap because they don't have good jobs. They've got a bad rap sheet, and they're coming here to just take advantage of situations where we now are very, very vulnerable. What would Easley look like in 20 years if that happened? So there's a lot to consider here. If we're going to build a product, we need to build a good product. We need to hold these developers to the highest standard that we possibly can. We need to take out time to have that 5, 10, 15, 20-year program where we say this is where we want development, but we don't need development over here. We need to make sure that this area can swallow it, but no more on this side, so that when people see this happening, they're not going to feel like they're just being taken advantage of. And so that's the first thing I would do if I'm elected mayor. I would start on that.
All right, got a question right here. You want me to run you another one? Test. Probably got that one turned down.
Check.
Okay.
David, can the mayor or the council have any input to the Utilities Commission about what to do about the infrastructure that's gone completely nuts?
I would say absolutely, because there is a marriage there, even though they're separated and they're not the same partnership. As mayor, I would want to work very closely with Combined to make sure that they're a part of our 5, 10, 15, 20-year project. I would want to work with the county. I want to get their input on it. I want to make sure that the best teams possible can come together to solve those questions, because one of the things you have to do when you lay a city out, you have to think about, obviously, the utilities, and that's going to have to bring Combined in to be able to say, we can do this, we can't do that, but we could do this in 3 years. It may take 10 years to do this. So all that is a very vital part of developing any city. So we would want to work very closely with them.
All right, next question. Got one back here.
Mr. Cox, I'm confused because I keep hearing you talk about the county. If you're running for the city of Easley mayor, should you not know what the documents are called? Because we do not use UDSO.
No, you don't. But I'm saying that as a general term. It's the same principle.
Well,
it is a standard that the city uses to develop to give a big box builder a standard in how they can and can't build.
I understand that, but if you're running for mayor, I would expect the candidate to know about the city.
Thank you, ma'am. I know who you're voting for.
So I've got a question.
One in every crowd.
I've got a question. So I don't want to.
I'll guarantee you my leadership skill will be far suppressed than the one you're voting for. If you look at this table, who showed up? And I'll tell you this. And thank you. And I will tell you this. I'm not bought. You can't buy me. I'm not paid for. I'm my own man, and I make my own mind up. Thank you.
So
next question.
I've got a question, and I don't. Obviously, you correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Cox. I think your number one issue is probably the development and growth. If not, correct me. What would be your number two issue?
Obviously, we're losing about 77,000 kids a year, your children, not ghetto kids, not minorities, not illegal immigrants, our children, your family, to fentanyl, 77,000 a year. If this were a war, we would be burning the streets down, asking our government to stop the war or to bring it to some end. 77,000 kids a year are dying on fentanyl overdoses. It is a massive epidemic in our country. And so I think, in my heart, I think I owe it to society to put my best foot forward, if not to save one child or one person or one family. I have sat by the bedside in hospitals and families and funeral homes with so many moms and dads just like you who've lost a 15-year-old kid, who've lost a 17-year-old boy, and the pain is horrific, and it doesn't have to happen. We know where this is coming from. We know it's coming from China. We know it's coming into Mexico. We know it's coming through our border. And we know the current administration is waving them through. And I would say that that is a disaster for this country. Now, that is a federal issue. But if I'm mayor, I will put my best foot forward to make sure that I do everything in my power to educate and train school teachers, schools, leadership, police officers, to watch for these groups of people that are pushing drugs in our community, to lock them up and get them out of our county and put them in a prison. I'm going to educate moms and dads on what to look for. I'm going to make sure that hospitals are prepared for it and that we review every law that we have out here to make sure that we're doing the very best we can for our children, because that should be a priority in our lives. I know subdivisions are wearing us out seeing the development, but you think about the people that you know, and I guarantee you everyone in this room knows somebody that's hurting, somebody that has pain, somebody that's suffering because you saw a friend or family member die of a fentanyl overdose. So I think I would take that on along with my wife. I want to say it's good to have my wife here tonight. She's a great supporter of me. Been married over 40 years, 41 years, I think. I hope I got that right. Anybody got a spare bedroom? I'm going to need it. 41 years, and I have my son. He and I do a podcast together, and we have the most conservative podcast in South Carolina, one of the most conservative in the country, and I appreciate my son Jordan being here. But I can just tell you, we have a passion for that, and we want to reach out as a team. We want to reach out and let the folks of our community know that we're going to fight for your children. And I told my wife, if I'm mayor, if I don't say but one kid, if I just spare one mom and dad from going through the hell of losing a kid because some human being slipped across the border under our current administration and allowed fentanyl to come into our city and kill our kids, I'm not going to stand for that. Thank you.
All right. Question back here.
I was told that Easley has a huge illegal immigrant population, huge Hispanic illegal population, by our planning director, Mario DePietri, and the impression I got was that it's just kind of being overlooked. Do you think that what can we do about this illegal population in Easley? I mean, what can we do about it? And what about the companies who are paying them cash under the table? I think if they do that, isn't it just saying that it's okay to, for them to be here illegally? What would you do about it?
The problem we have in our country is that if you listen to all the presidential candidates, they're talking about stopping building the wall. Well, we're all for that. That's obvious. If you listen to my podcast, we mention it every single time we get on the air. But we also have about 20 million illegals in this country. And that's really sad because they're costing you billions of dollars every year, billions of dollars. You're paying about $17,000 a year for everyone that's in school. They're using all of our facilities, such as our police department, emergency department. So we're having to pay for all of it, and it's really a shame that we're doing that. And what a lot of these big companies are doing is they get one person legal to get them a Social Security card, and a lot of times it's stolen. And they'll go to the bank. They'll go to the bank and open up a checking account, and then they'll go to work for these big box builders, and they'll take thousands of dollars a week that they're paid, and they'll put it in that account. And when the check clears, they'll pull that money out and pay illegals. And after 2 years, when the IRS says we haven't filed taxes on it, and we don't have the returns, where are you at? Well, these people have no name, no fingerprint, no ID. We don't have any idea who they are. And so what happens is they close that account up, go to another bank across the street, get another Social Security card, open up another account, put in millions of dollars, pay all these illegals. Have you ever been on a building site in Easley or Pickens County and noticed all the thousands of what I call Latinos working on houses? You don't see your kids out there. And I think that we have to look hard at that, and that's a problem. There are illegals everywhere. I know Biden has allowed almost 7 million in 3.5 years. 7 million illegals. So if you have 20 million illegals in this country, that's the size of North Carolina and Georgia. And they pay no taxes. They use all of our facilities and services, and they give us nothing back. and that's a crying shame. We need leadership to fix that. We need leadership to hold those people accountable, but we don't get it. It is a problem. Now, if they're illegal in our city, that becomes an issue for the sheriff's department. That is an issue. Do they want to enforce a law there? And I hate to say it, it's very difficult to get the government to take an issue with that. Now, if they commit a crime and that crime is serious enough, then our sheriff's department does have a right to call ICE, and they can take them out and send them back across the border, which you do see that a lot. And when they talk about illegals being sent back, that's typically what you're looking at. It is a problem. We have to have a hard conversation about that at some time in the future. And sad to say, a lot of your tax dollars go to fund this, especially in our school system and our hospitals. Just for an example, maybe 6 months ago, there was a lady riding down, I think it was Saluda Dam Road. Her kid fell out of the car, and the kid was run over and killed. I think the kid was maybe a year or two. When the police got there, they took, obviously, the family to wherever they needed to take them, to the mortuary, because the child was dead. But I was told that they never could find the mom and dad again, because there's no name, no fingerprints. They don't know who these people are. There's no identification to them. And so they just slip through our system, and they can hide anywhere they want, and there's nothing you and I can do, and yet they have more rights than you do as a citizen. And I want to tell you something. When I file my taxes, I have to because I'm a U.S. citizen. When I have to pay to send my kids to school, I have to do that because I'm a U.S. citizen. And I think it's a crime to let 20 million people live in this country and not pay their fair share of taxes.
Got a question down front?
Again, I've been led into a perfect segue for a question that has to do with that. United States law states that every employer in the United States must have an I-9 form filled out for every single employee. So it's not just the fault of the illegals coming in here and taking jobs. There is no culpability or accountability for companies that are hiring these people, paying them however they choose to pay them. The very fact that these people are working a job, whether it's in a store, on a job site, cutting grass, United States law says you have to verify driver's license, social security, some type of identification to verify that these people belong here. So it's a two-pronged legal issue. Now, is that something that the mayor needs to look at in the city of Easley to make sure that all of the businesses are complying with U.S. law?
The way they get around that is a company will get one illegal and say, you can work for me and I'll pay you this money if you get you a Social Security card. So they'll go out and find somebody with a Social Security card and get it, steal it, buy it, whatever they got to do to it. They'll take that card and they'll go get a checking account opened. And when the checking account is open, they will go back to that employer and say, I'm a subcontractor, I'm a 1099. I want your business. So that big box builder will say, okay, I'm going to let you put roofs on my houses. Here's 300 homes. Start on it. That employer, that Latino illegal, will go out and get, and there are some cases where he may be legal, or he may have some documentation, but they get that stolen Social Security card, and he will hire 20 people to work for him, and he will put on 20, 30 roofs that week. And then he'll get a check every 30 days from that big box builder, and it could be $40,000, $50,000, $100,000. And they'll take that money and put it in the checking account that they opened. Well, that check clears in 2 or 3 days. He pulls that money out as cash, and he pays his workers. That's the problem. And that's where they're getting around this. You can have a legal 1099 subcontractor, and whatever he does with his employees, you can't control that. But that's what they're doing. And that's why you see all these illegals on a construction. If you walked on that construction site and said hello, nobody would know what you said because they're not from here.
But if you said green card, they'd all panic.
Yep. So that's the problem, and it is a problem. But as mayor, I will have a big seat to talk about that to a lot of our leadership, because that's a big problem for our country. It's one thing to build a wall, but look what the mess we've created. And I tell people, when you do bad government, it's like well, I'm sure most of us own a home here, rent a home. If you open up under the kitchen sink and water's dripping out of the P-trap, it's a 2-second thing to change the P-trap, tighten it up, wipe the water off the bottom. If you wait a month, you got a spot there. Now you can clean it, but you see the water spot. If you wait a year, it's through the cabinet, it's in the subfloor. If you wait 5 years, the whole kitchen cabinets are falling in. Where do you think we are in illegal immigration in this country? That's the problem. And it's not just Democrats. Republicans have let it happen as well. When when Trump was in office, he controlled the House and the Senate for 2 years. I never saw a bill to address any of this. And it's really sad. We can build the wall, but we got bigger problems. Next question. Go ahead.
Got one right here.
The mayor is the chief executive officer of a city, and I'd love to see a strong mayor with great ethics that has an excellent business background, that has excellent leadership characteristics. And with only one candidate here tonight, the floor is yours, David, to tell us just a little bit about your qualifications for this job. Same question I asked the other candidates.
Thank you. Well, let me say this. My father was a musician. He loved to play music. He loved it more than he loved his family. I don't say my daddy didn't love me, but boy, he loved that music. And he drug me and my 3 brothers all over this country with my mom, from Alaska to Miami. And we were so poor that when we came to town, people ran because we were hungry and naked and had nowhere to go. I know what it's like to leave my class in the afternoon at 3 o'clock and wonder where we'd be living at that night. I know what hunger is. I've gone to bed many, many nights wishing I could feed my brothers. And I choke up about it because I know pain, but I know God, and I know what you can do if you believe in yourself. And if you believe in yourself, you can climb out of any hole. Today I built a company that's a multi-million-dollar company because I looked in the mirror and I said, I'm not going to live the life my daddy lived. I'm a better man than that. And every day of my life I struggle and I fight to be that better man. And I can tell you I have ethics. I'm not perfect, but I have morality and decency, and I'm willing to fight for you. If you look what I've done on this planning commission in the last 3 years, you'll know that I'm the only guy that had teeth to stand up against those leaders and say, this must stop. Now I can tell you I'm a qualified leader because I'm a team player. And I'm sorry if I get a little choked up about that, but my past still haunts me. But my future is bright because I believe in God, and I believe what God puts in you, you can be anything you want to be. And I see the problems in our community, and I'm willing to fight for these people. If you give me a chance, I'll be the best mayor you ever had. And it doesn't matter what kind of government you have, I'm still going to listen to the people, and that's the kind of leader I am. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have time for one more question. It's hard to believe time's getting away from us, but I got one here in the back.
David, one of the things I have liked about you is your passion for waking up the church and the community and getting active in whether it's politics or the local community. So I know it's a little bit outside of some of your main priorities probably, but how do you see engaging the church, good people, conservatives, believers, and helping with whether it's the homeless situation or other issues in Easley?
That is an excellent question because I pastored for 35 years and I've been in business for about 20. So I stopped taking a paycheck 2 decades ago, and I just donated my time to the community as a pastor. One of the things we do as churches that is not the best is that we become very inclusive in our church systems. We think more about what we need to do with our own. But the Bible says God called us to reach out and to help people. If I'm mayor, I'm going to work very, very hard to help people who are just not in church get help. There are a lot of people right here in this community that are going to go to bed tonight that are hungry, that are homeless. There's a lot of moms out there that have kids, and they're just begging for somebody to help them. I see these people every day. And what I want to do is build a relationship between our city and all these churches, a website, a call-in, where if someone says, look, my kids got to go to school tomorrow, they don't have any shoes. I want to be able to talk to pastors and churches and say, look, I know you're a busy pastor, but what about some of your members? Could they take on some of these projects, and would they be willing to help meet some of the social needs in our community? Because that's what churches should do. And wouldn't it be great if we became the first city in South Carolina that had a program where we reached out to people who are hurting in our community, not expecting the government to fix and pay for everything, because that's impossible. How many of you remember when the church was the place that people called when somebody was hurting? Now, where's it at today? We need to bring that back and hold churches accountable. We love them, but they got the resources and ability. And I'll guarantee you, if I submitted this project to pastors, they would be standing up in line and say, Pastor or Mayor, I want to help. I'll make a difference if you give me a chance. My membership, my leadership are willing to do whatever we can to help address these social needs. You know, we have 70 and 80-year-old single women who can't even cut their grass. They call somebody, it's, $75. You're getting $700 a month, and you got to pay $75 twice a month when you got churches that would love to be a part of a good program like that. So I'm going to work very hard to marry that together and see how many churches, how many needs we have in this community so we can help solve some of the social crises in our community. Thank you. It's a great question.
Thank you. So we will wrap up now. Mr. Cox, we can get a closing remark from you. Since we don't have anybody else, as I mentioned, you have the floor, and we will wrap up after that.
Well, Clay, I want to thank you for letting me come speak to these people. You are some of the best leaders that we have here in the city of Easley. I thank you and appreciate you taking out 2 hours of your time to come here and listen to me and these other candidates. I want to say to you that as your new mayor, if I'm elected, I work very hard for you. I do not believe it's them against us, and it's not us against them. They are us, and we are them. And we got to tear that wall down and become one, where we listen to each other's needs, and we work hard for the same goal. Because I tell people all the time, hey, if I'm your mayor, I'm going to see you in a grocery store. I'm going to meet you at church. I'm going to bump into you at the doctor's office. I need to be able to hold my head up high and know that I've heard your voice and I've represented you and you're important to me. That's what makes communities great. That's what will make Easley great, and I want to bring it to us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Cox, for taking the time, and thank you to all of you. You know, you guys could have been anywhere tonight, but you took time to come and hear from these candidates, and that means a lot because local government is incredibly important. You guys drive safe tonight, and please sign up. We have our sign-up list. Also, some forms over there from the Mom and Pop Alliance, if you guys will check those out as well. And hope to see y'all next time. Thank you.